needs enlivening. Let there be lights. Alrighty. Another crowded day, Nugaloka. Crowds are proud. Oh, okay. All right. So, Raghunandan, I'll need your help in this class, so we're going to need your feedback in part of the class. What? I'm going to need Raghunandan's feedback for part of this class, because he's going to be expert in one of the themes. Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bihati Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunya Bihati Gopi Janaballabha Girivarudhaji Gopi Janaballabha Girivarudhaji Yasuranandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasuranandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tera Manachari Yamuna Tera Banachanti Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunjabihati Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunjabihati Gopi Janaballabha Iri Balaraude Gopi Janaballabha Iri Balaraude Yasudanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasudanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Ranu Madhuva Kunya Bihati Jaya Radhu Madhuva Deva Kunya Bihaji Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatikacharya also Tadu Sajashi Shimad Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidway Gadadha Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturidam Ki Jai Jagadava Swami Ki Jai Manamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samarita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachani Nivashesha Shanyavadi Paschacha Jadisha Tarani. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 77th chapter, text 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Gada Satchaki Sambhajya Jagnu Soba Pater Balam Petu Samudre Sobeya Sarve Sangchana Kandara Gadasatyaki Sambhajya Jagnu Sopa Pater Balam Petu Samudre Sobeya Sarve Sanchana Kandadaha Gadasachaki Sambhajya Jagnu Sobapater Balam Petu Samudre Sobeya Sarve Sanchana Kandadaha Gadasachaki Sambhajya Jagnu Sobapater Balam Petu Samudre Sobeya Sarve Sanchana Kandadaha. Okay. Gadasachaki Samba Ajaha. Gadasachaki Samba and others. Jagnu, they killed. Sobapate, of the master of Soba Shalva. Palam, the army. Petu, they fell. Samudre, into the ocean. Sobeyaha, those who were standing inside Soba. Sarve, all. Sanshana, cut through. Kandaraha, who's next? Translation, Gadasa, Chaki, Samba, and others began killing Shalva's army. Thus all the soldiers inside the airship began falling into the ocean, their necks severed. You repeat. Gadasa, Chaki, Samba, and others began killing Shalva's army. And thus all the soldiers inside the airship began falling into the ocean, their necks severed. So, very short commentary. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the same thing. Jiva Goswami says, not only to show prowess, others inspired by him, the Yadu warriors, began decimating Shalva's army. Almost all had their heads severed. So we're going to continue reading. Evam yadunam shalvanam dignatam itareturam yudam trinava ratram tad abutumalam luvanam. As the Yadus and Shalva's followers thus went on attacking one another, the tumultuous, fearsome battle continued for 27 days and nights. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the same thing. Jiva Goswami says the same thing. And finally, we're going to read 6 to 7 and comment on that. Indrapashtam gata Krsna ahuto dharma sunana rajasuye nivrite shishupale jasangstite kuru vriddan anugyapya munims cha sasutambritam nimitanyati gorani pashandwaravatim yayao. Invited by Yudhisthira, the son of Dharma, Lord Krishna had gone to Indraprastha. Now that the Rajasuya sacrifice had been completed and Shishupala killed, God bless you, the Lord began to see inauspicious omens. So he took leave of the Kuru elders and the great sages, and also of Pritha and her sons, and returned to Dwarka. Jiva Goswami says Krishna actually went because Narada had given him information. He'd gone to Indraprastha for the Rajasuya sacrifice. I'm skipping part of this. Instead of Atta, sometimes Cha is seen on the way. He saw omens. Now, Sanatana Goswami gives a little different take. He had been called to Indraprastha by a messenger, according to the Mahabharata by Yudhisthira, according to the present verse. According to Shukadeva, he went by the advice of Uddhava, because of Narada's words. It just details. This was previously described. There are contrary statements later in the text also. These will be shown in the appropriate places. Yudhisthira was dedicated to Dharma. Dharma Sutena, Krishna had been attracted by Yudhisthira's calling. After going there, the sacrifice was completed and Shishupala had been killed. The goal in going there had been accomplished. He took permission to leave from elders like Bhima and sages like Vyasadeva, as well as Kunti and her sons. He saw omens on the way. So, Omagara Timirandasha, Garanjana Shilakaya Chakshur, Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurve Namaha. So, the first thing I want to mention, is not the main topic of the class, is that how Krishna observed etiquette. Even though he saw omens and he understood something was happening, he still took blessings from Kunti Devi and the other elderly members, and he got Yudhisthira Maharaj's permission to leave. So it's interesting. Even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he still followed etiquette. So this etiquette is extremely important. Of course, we see this illustrated in the Bhagavatam, in the story of Maitreya, Vidura, and Uddhava, where basically Uddhava, because he was younger than Vidura was actually quite old in relationship to Uddhava. Uddhava decided not to accept Maitreya, and not to accept Vidura as a spiritual master, or Vidura decided not to accept Uddhava as a spiritual master because Uddhava was actually younger. And at the same time, there was who? Maitreya, who was quite old. So this is called a maryada, following the etiquette. So Krishna follows the etiquette, and there's many examples of this. Devotees should follow the etiquette, and that's not the topic of today's class. The topic of today's class is a very interesting topic. I thought we'd have a lot of fun with this one. Is omens. Like not mans, but omens. And I actually did some research. When I read this word omens, I got pretty ecstatic because I was thinking of Raghunandanan too, because who's expert in omens. There's omens, I want to be very clear, there's omens and symptoms, which are two different things. Sometimes you have the symptoms of Kali Yuga, one of which, people think by keeping long hairs, they're becoming beautiful. That's a symptom, that's not an omen. And so we see many symptoms here, such as the present political situation. That's a symptom, not an omen. An omen is something that refers to something else. You understand? It's not simply, that something bad happens. So, in the Vedic literatures, there's auspicious omens or auspicious signs and inauspicious signs. And of course, the one I talk about the most is the twitching of the eye. Isn't that you hear that quite often? In the Ramayana, this particular omen is mentioned so many times. So many times. Like you have Ravana, who's going out to fight, and his left eye starts twitching like crazy. And he thinks, that's inauspicious, but I can overcome this omen. And so he goes out and he gets killed by Ram, which actually, one should not ignore omens. I remember one time, even with myself, I'm going to get more into detail about this, but one time I was getting ready to fly somewhere, and I walked out my door, and there was a dead bird on the path. Now, it doesn't take someone expert like Raghunandanan to understand that particular omen. I said, that's it, I'm not flying today. So, let's talk about auspicious omens that have occurred in Krishna's pastimes. Of course, the first one is that when Krishna appeared, the universe was surcharged with peace and prosperity. Just predicting Krishna would appear. Rivers flowed with clear waters, the description. Lakes were filled with lotuses. Birds sang sweetly, not like crows. Sometimes you hear the crows or the owls. And a fragrant, cool breeze blew. And there was an auspicious constellation, and I'm sure Raghunandanan would know about this, the Rohini constellation. How is it Rohini auspicious?
It's in Taurus, which is the best sign.
Uh-huh.
That's for the moon. And Taurus is of the nature of property, which is our nature.
Right.
And Rohini is right in the middle of it, full of good quality.
That's nice. Nice to have an expert. And stars like Ashvini appeared. You know about Ashvini?
Yes, it's the first star. It's all about starts and childhood nature.
It's auspicious.
It is. Moved by our Srimati Maharaj.
Very nice. And there's other ones. Other ones that, let's talk more about. There's a devotee scene signs, and the one example here is Akrura, on his way to Vrindavan, noticed that the deer were passing on his right side, which means you're going to see the Lord, he was going to see the Lord face to face. And so if the deer pass on the left side, I guess it means something else. Of course, probably you don't know this, but I don't know it either.
It might depend if you're a man or a woman.
Oh.
Right is auspicious for a man, and left is auspicious.
But as far as the deer,
Well, right and left. If it's a female deer, maybe.
I don't know, there's female deer, there's male deer. It's very complicated. It's a whole science that we shouldn't try to simplify unless someone's really, if someone's expert, they like Raghunandan in the stars, they can tell us, but we shouldn't speculate about it because there's people who study it their whole lives and they can see signs and everything. I mean, even in other cultures, there's the reading of tea leaves. You ever heard of that before? Or there's different sticks that people throw down, isn't it?
Yeah, there's many different.
I Ching. Many divination systems, signs like that. So Krsna has auspicious signs which indicate his presence, which is the flag, lotus, thunderbolt, elephant driving rod, and barley corn on the sign. His souls, that means he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one of the most auspicious or interesting descriptions, I wouldn't say auspicious, descriptions of inauspicious things is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto. And I'm going to read some of those descriptions. Give me a second. And this is from the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 14th chapter, text 2. So, just read these. A few months passed and Arjuna did not return. Maharaj Yudhisthira then began to observe some inauspicious omens, which were fearful in themselves. He saw that the direction of eternal time had changed, and this was very fearful. Wow. In other words, like Kali Yuga was just coming around the corner. There were disruptions in the seasonal regularities. Don't we see that now?
Yeah.
The people in general had become very greedy, angry, and deceitful. Ooh. And he saw that they were adopting foul means of livelihood. So these were all symptoms or omens that the Lord had left the planet. Because when Krishna left the planet, Dharma, Jnana, Visa, that Dharma left with him. All ordinary transactions and dealings became polluted with cheating, even between friends. And in familial affairs, there was always misunderstanding between fathers, mothers, and sons, between well-wishers and between brothers. Even between husbands and wife, there was always strain and quarrel. So he was observing these different signs. In the course of time, it came to pass that people in general became accustomed to greed, anger, pride, etc. And so then Yudhisthira Maharaj here speaks to his younger brother, that's Bhimsen, because Arjuna wasn't there at that particular time. Arjuna had actually gone to Dwarka, and then he had tried to rescue some of Krishna's queens, and that whole story, it's a different story. So Yudhisthira Maharaj asked the question after seeing all these omens, is he going to quit his earthly pastimes, as Devarshi Narada indicated? And skipping ahead one verse, just see, O man with a tiger's strength, that's Bhimsen, how many miseries due to celestial influences, earthly reactions, and bodily pains, all very dangerous in themselves, are foreboding danger in the near future by diluting our intelligence. Wow. This is actually a very heavy part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The left side of my body, not only his eyes, my thighs, my arms, and eyes are all quivering again and again. I'm having heart palpitations. That's not an auspicious sign, even if it's not, one of the traditional ones. Due to fear. All this indicates undesirable happenings, and then it gets heavier. Just see, O Bhima, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly. Haven't we all had dogs bark at us fearlessly? Shoo. In other words, indirectly, we can understand in those days the dogs were actually well behaved. Oh, Bhimsen, tiger among men, now useful animals like cows are passing me on the left side. And the lower animals, like the asses, are circumambulating me. My horses appear to weep upon seeing me. I mean, these are obvious symptoms. Just see, this pigeon is like a messenger of death. The shrieks of the owls, like I mentioned before, owls shriek is not auspicious. And their rival crows make my heart tremble. It appears that they want to make a void of the whole universe. Just see how there's another one, how the smoke encircles the sky. So if the smoke encircles the sky in a certain direction, it doesn't mention the direction here, it indicates something. It appears that the earth and mountains are throbbing. Just hear the cloudless thunder and the bolts from the blue. The wind blows violently, blasting dust everywhere and creating darkness. Clouds are raining everywhere with bloody disasters. Whew. Haven't we seen like the weather patterns change and get worse with time? The rays of the sun are declining and the stars appear to be fighting amongst themselves. Confused living entities appear to be ablaze and weeping. Rivers, tributaries, ponds, and reservoirs, and the mind are all perturbed. In other words, you see all these rivers drying up and the reservoirs drying up at this particular time. Butter no longer ignites fire, especially if you're using vegetable oil. I remember one time they actually used vegetable oil for Prabhupada's sacrifices and wouldn't start. What is the extraordinary time? What is going to happen? The calves do not suck the teats of the cows, nor do the cows give milk. They are standing, crying tears in the eyes, and the bulls take no pleasure in the pasturing grounds. The deities seem to be crying in the temple, lamenting and perspiring. Wow. One interesting personal experience I had. These are the verses they read in the Bhagavatam class that drove me away from the Krishna conscious movement for a year and a half. Because the person giving class, it was Amarendra, my old friend, he said, look, you better join right away or this is what's going to happen to you, very inauspicious side. Anyway, especially the Yamadutas. All the cities, villages, towns, gardens, mines, and hermitages are now devoid of beauty and bereft of all happiness. I do not know what sort of calamities are now awaiting us. I think that all these earthly disturbances indicate some greater loss to the good fortune of the world. The world was fortunate to have been marked with the footprints of the lotus feet of the Lord. These signs indicate that this will no longer be. So there's very, very heavy section of the Bhagavatam. And so we'll go on talking more about the different signs. And there's actually some more inauspicious signs here. They describe it in the Bhagavatam. Kamsa, before he got killed by Krishna, there was premonition of his death. He could not see his own head in a mirror. Has anyone had that experience? That would be pretty heavy. And he saw double luminaries in the sky. Sometimes I've seen like that. Sometimes you see double luminaries. That may be due to some fog or something in the sky. And he saw holes in his shadow. Oof. Yeah, he's right. He also dreamed of being embraced by ghosts, drinking poison, and seeing a naked man smeared with oil. So if you ever see these yourselves, start chanting Hare Krishna very, very sincerely, because then maybe there's a chance you'll die in an auspicious way. So there's many omens that occur at the birth of demons, and it's described in the Bhagavatam that these include earthquakes that shake the mountains, inauspicious planets like Saturn taking retrograde courses. What does that mean? Retrograde means going in the opposite, appearing to go in the opposite direction. He appears. It doesn't actually go. Saturn is retrograde right now? How long is it going to be retrograde for? Months? Until when?
I'm not sure. It goes for a long time, 6 months, I think.
I think I need to go to Govardhan. And the sky is being blanketed by a dust storm. Shoo, some of these are very... there's biological anomalies, like cows yielding blood instead of milk. And of course, the way they milk the cows now, they do have milk, have blood in them. So there's, anyway, there's different symptoms, which are not exactly signs, which I mentioned. People will become smaller in size. I guess that's a sign and a symptom. Living very short lives. Bhagavatam describes, a symptom. A man will be known by a Brahmin only by wearing the 2-cent sacred thread. There was actually a person in our movement who said that the thread is the initiation. It's interesting, isn't it? So in other words, one sign of Kali Yugas, you see the predominance of smartas, sahajas, isn't it? And different deviant Vaishnava groups that actually confuse the devotees and deviate them from the actual path of devotional service. There's a lot more illusory things going on, deviant things going on, even within the society of devotees. Trees becoming tiny, like Bhagavatam describes like tiny dwarf. Shami trees, and in Japan they love these shami trees, isn't it? These really small trees. Another sign is disembodied or unembodied voices you hear in the sky. Like when Kamsa heard that the 8th child of Devaki and Vasudeva was going to kill him. And in the Bhagavatam there's the description of the omen of the iron club. When the iron club appeared from Samba, it was actually an inauspicious omen that indicated that the whole dynasty was going to be destroyed. So, anyway, that was what I wanted to talk about, was omens, because Krishna observed omens. It's the description is that we should study the verses here where it describes Krishna observing omens and apply it to ourselves, because we should remain vigilant, recognize different omens that may occur, and always take shelter of Krishna, who can actually counteract different omens or different signs. Like Prabhupada would sometimes talk about how if we clap our hands and dance and chant, all the different inauspicious signs will change and become auspicious. on the hand. And also for a devotee, and this is what I wanted Raghunandan's help for, that sometimes the inauspicious things will be auspicious for a devotee, isn't it? Just like things of material poverty or problems may indicate an opportunity for a devotee to advance quickly in devotional service. Like, for example, you even have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appearing during what? An eclipse. An eclipse. You know, there's signs of insanity there, isn't it? In Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's horoscope. An eclipse, not auspicious to be born during an eclipse. Yet, this indicates that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be renounced from this material world and have transcendental divyonmada, transcendental madness, like we see in the final pages of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, living in the Gambhira, would hit his head on the walls or the floor of the Gambhira. He had to be protected. That's mad. But that madness we should aspire for. Like we hear about these vyabhachara. Of course, that we should not imitate them and think that the madness is actually devotional service. Let me just roll on the ground. I mean, like there was that whole story. The person who imitated Haridas Thakur, he was rolling on the ground in ecstasy, hearing the chanting of this particular person who was chanting. And then the person who was chanting, he kicked this person. He said, "You're just imitating Haridas Thakur." So we don't want to imitate these symptoms and just, you know, start crying artificially, rolling on the ground like that. But really our objective is to become mad in the Krishna consciousness, isn't it? To become crazy. Yeah, the Prabhupada actually published a little booklet, Who is Crazy? But that craziness is transcendental ecstasy. So the point is we have to be careful when talking about horoscopes of devotees like that. I mean, even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got cursed to be kicked out of his house because this person couldn't get into the Shiva Sangha to hear the kirtan. And that's considered inauspicious to be cursed by a Brahmin. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took that as a benediction. Narada Muni took it as a benediction to be cursed by Daksha. So one has to be careful, isn't it, when looking at the horoscope of a devotee, because material, let's say, problems may actually be a stepping stone for a devotee's spiritual advancement, if the devotee takes it the right way. Yashaham anagrinami, Hurishe taddanam shanai. For those who I especially favor, sometimes Krishna takes things away. And tataye nakupa, ridvad vapurvir vedam namaste, jiveta yo mukti padesat doyabak. That if one goes on serving Krishna, tatena kampam sushamikshvana bhunjanivatma kritam vipakam. Ridva vapurvir vidadam namaste jiveta yo mukte sutayabak. Then one gets Krishna's mercy. So one has to be careful, isn't it, Raghunandan, in interpreting the horoscope of a devotee. So, any questions about omens? Yes.
Saturn went retrograde July 26th, and we got it retrograde until December 11th.
Egavolt.
Does that every year.
Every year.
Oh, every year, okay.
So you have to look at other planets to see if they are also bad, then bad things might happen. Just Saturn retrograde is not enough.
Oh, that's nice to know. That's nice to know. Thank you for that information. You've relieved me. Yes, Madhava.
All these bad symptoms may be certainly scary to what has to happen, will happen regardless.
No, you can do counteracting.
Discouraged. Why get discouraged by these signs? No one can stop that thing what has to happen.
You can do counteracting things. Kaler doshan et he rajan asheko mahadgunat kirtana deva Krishna sho mukta sangha paramvajet. This Kali Yuga is an ocean of quarrel, ocean of difficulty, but simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Kaler doshan he rajan, O king, it's an ocean of problems. But there is one good quality that overwhelms all the so-called bad symptoms or omens or whatever, as simply by chanting Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada said, I have created your good fortune. Previously, I could say my own life, I had no good fortune. Maybe material good fortune, if you consider money to be good fortune. But, my life was very unfortunate because I didn't have Krishna. And so Prabhupada created my good fortune. He changed my fate. Prabhupada changed my fate. So, of course, you go to Raghunandan and he may say, well, it was in your horoscope. But it was in the horoscope that Prabhupada was supposed to change my fate. You understand? That's an interesting discussion between free will and determinism. That Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knows everything past, present, and future. That's stated in the Bhagavad Gita. So does that mean we can't make choices? No. It's just that Krishna knows how or what choices we're going to make. So maybe you could say it was predicted that I would meet Prabhupada according to my horoscope. But that was because of Prabhupada's mercy. The right choices. Yeah, I could have made the wrong choices.
Krishna enjoys our choices. He doesn't enjoy being God and determining.
Right.
And he enjoys our choices, and he holds us responsible for our choices. So we can't say, oh, Krishna did it. We have to say, I did it.
Yeah. Prabhupada did it to me. Prabhupada gave me mercy, and I chose Prabhupada. I did. There was some choice in there on my part. And, So, but even given the same horoscope, technically I could have chosen a different path. And the horoscope would have indicated something else. It's just, you can't really take horoscopes or the astrology in isolation from other factors. That's really important too.
Yeah. Prabhupada's chart, for example, made him say, it's an awesome chart for the religious leader. But it was present in roughly for 2 days.
Yeah.
Charts are present for roughly 2 days. And during that time, in Calcutta, other people were born, and they didn't become great spiritual leaders.
Right.
And other things. So there, that's what we're saying. There's other factors that God ultimately say.
Yeah, there's other factors too. You can't say that like two people born at the same time, exactly the same time, they have different fate. Of course, they're.
I know of a girl who was born exactly when I was in the same hospital. She's different.
Maybe the physical location was a little different. Yeah, there's different karma. Even with the same horoscope, you can have different karma, different desires, how that horoscope gets expressed in one particular life. So we can't just depend on omens. We can, if we're aware of certain omens, it's like the weather forecast. If you know it's going to rain, you take what? An umbrella. But if you know it's going to be thunder, don't take an umbrella. At least a metal umbrella, because that will attract lightning. It's like a lightning rod. Yeah, it's actually, I just wanted to mention that it's actually quite dangerous. If you have a complete metal umbrella, it will attract lightning. So, anyway, you take some precaution. It's Kali Yuga. Okay, so you take some precaution there. You chant more, or even materially, you take some precaution. You know, if it's raining out, you drive slower, that's all. So, uh-oh. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
I was thinking about an airplane
Yeah.
has a defect, it's gonna crash. Depends on who the pilot is.
Yeah.
The pilot is good.
Yeah, you're like you had that one in Hudson where.
Yeah. You don't have the pilot is his experience, and there's that. You know, 2 engines with birds. Yeah. I mean, you manage and
Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Eyam Kanvandam Maravindadalayataksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaranam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Ananiya Sakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Maya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Snapistaya Putane Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namani Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Vacha Nege Nevesesha Shunyavare Masyaja Tarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gauranga Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Nityananda Brahma Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gauranga Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Kori Urai, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Jai Om Vishnupad. Paramahamsa Acharya also tells Shri Krishna divine grace. Goswami. Friends, say Namo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sway Shri Shri Radha Krishna Shine Panda Madhavanda Govardhan Vrindavan Mathura Goswami Himanwai She, Guru and Gauranga Prabhupada.
Harinam Sankirtan on Saturday, that's the day after tomorrow, 4 p.m. in Chapel Hill. We'll be on Franklin Street at the post office. Please come. It was really nice last week, and it'll be really nice again this week. Chaitodarbha marjanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Pranamrita Swaranam. You match the deities. Ratmasnapanam Paravijayade Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Udanija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smaranena Kala Etandrashita Magripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjanina. Thank you. I like your shirt. Yanivashitena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amanina Nadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Harinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vabada Pandikaja Stita Duli Sadrashim Vachintaya Nainam Galashu Daraya Vadanam Gad Gadurudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vabukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Yugayatam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayadam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahiname Ashlishava Badamratam Anastumam Adarshanam Marmahata Karotuva Yata Tatava Vidadatulam Pato Mat Pranatastusa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste nectar for which we are always anxious. Oh, my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. They're not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be